that the meeting's being recorded and the live stream is on. Yes, it is. Okay. So I have pleasure in opening the council meeting of the 22nd of October 2024 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and to pay my respects to the elders past and present, and also acknowledge that the City of Vincent has a role to play in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. I haven't received any apologies for tonight's meeting, but I do note that Councillor Wallace is yet to join us. I'm anticipating that Councillor Wallace will be here soon. I also have no approved leaves of absence. Okay, a member of the public who's present, would you like to address the meeting? Okay, please come forward. You have addressed the meeting before, so I won't go through everything. You know the story. Thank you.
Good evening, Ms. Ammon and councillors. Leslie Flory, 79 Sass Ave, Mount Hawthorn. I'd like my comments added into the minutes of the meeting. Amendments to the Stormwater Connection Policy. On the 2nd of Jan 2023, I requested to be added to the group consultation list due to the impact of the stormwater pipe and easements on my property. On the 3rd of the 1st, 2023, I received an acknowledgement that I'd be added. The City of Vincent have a group email list for East Street, Sass Ave and Linton Street residents, all of whom are affected by flooding, stormwater pipes and easements on their properties. It is clear that all these residents are stakeholders. In the Stormwater Management Manual for WA 6.1.2, it clearly states identify and engage all stakeholders, which includes community groups and nearby residents. Given the guidelines, I have several concerns. Why did the City of Vincent fail to notify by group email to all these group stakeholders? Why did the City of Vincent fail to engage and consult with all three stakeholder groups? Since the GHD Drainage Technical Memorandum in 2022 until this date, 22nd October 2024, how many residents in total in the entire City of Vincent have been identified with stormwater pipes running through their properties? Has the City of Vincent created any easements over these stormwater pipes? Is the City of Vincent going to create easements? Is the City of Vincent going to pay for these surveying and easements costs? In my case, I had to pay for all the surveying, all the potholing and easement costs. So therefore, are you expecting the individual landowners to pay for these costs? Stormwater pipe on my property was UV relined on the 10th of April 2024. Excluding my property, how many other properties with stormwater pipes have been UV relined since the 11th of April 2024 to this date, 22nd of October 2024? I advised in the 18th of May 2023 council meeting that the stormwater connection policy should be placed on hold until all the stormwater pipes were located, mapped and their condition noted and the capacity issues rectified, and the City of Vincent are able to control the flow of stormwater. You are now acting on this. You say the capacity of the city's drainage system is constrained, then you need to increase the size of the pipes to increase the capacity. Why are you not engaging in a business like Hydrostorm, who designed a 4-tank underground system recently for a primary school, which offered a holding of total net volume of 1.3 million litres? Menzies Park presents a perfect area for a similar solution. Why is the City of Vincent engineers not engaged with businesses like Hydrostorm to explore these opportunities? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. A summary of your remarks will be included in the minutes, and the responses will be in the agenda of the next council meeting. Okay, so there being no further questions, I close public question time at 6:04, and I note that during public question time we were joined by Councillor Wallace. So if the minutes could please reflect that we have everybody in attendance. Governance Manager, can you please confirm if any written statements were received?
Confirming we received one written statement from Dudley Meyer of Highgate in relation to items 11.2 and 11.5.
I have not received any requests for leave of absence. Do any councillors now wish to apply for leave of absence? Okay. I have not received any petitions, deputations or presentations. So now we'll move to the confirmation of minutes. And the proposal is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 17th of September 2024 be confirmed. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Warner. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. CEO, can you please read the declarations of interest?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, the declarations of interest we'll do that first.
Actually, sorry, there is some announcements that I wish to make before we go to the declarations of interest. It would be remiss of me as the Mayor not to make some comment as to the incidents that occurred last week in relation to the removal of the 10 trees, the 10 mature trees, mature healthy trees on the corner of East Parade and Guildford Road. I have to say I'm extremely disappointed at the way that the circumstances around the removal of the trees occurred. I want to be very clear. The City of Vincent received an application from DPLH to look to remove trees on the site, and with that provided one arborist report. To this date, the only arborist report that has ever been received by the City of Vincent. And that arborist report came back and said that the trees, all the trees were assessed independently, but relying on that report, the planning department here in the City of Vincent put forward a recommendation that all the trees on the site should be retained. And I think that it's important to note that the City of Vincent Planning Department also recommended that extensive consultation occur with the local community as to what was being proposed with the development, and also would have been willing to engage directly with DPLH around looking at built form moving forward to ensure that we could have both density, and in this case we're talking about 80 dwellings of social housing, and also maintain the trees. I think this is the thing that Vincent does really well. Vincent does really well, working directly with developers to try to produce the best outcomes for inner city living, ensuring that we are maintaining our tree canopy, creating livable communities, but also livable buildings. And I'm extremely disappointed that DPLH effectively decided to ignore that opportunity to work with Vincent to see if they could come up with a really excellent design for that site. Instead, we were told that the trees needed to be removed because of underlying issues around asbestos. Now, I have no doubt that there was asbestos on the site. We have asbestos right throughout the City of Vincent because we are an old area, and that means that there are a lot of the sites that require remediation of asbestos. But what we also know is that there are ways to actually engage in asbestos removal around existing trees. You don't have to, it is not the case that you automatically have to remove them. We kept getting told that there was a second arborist's report that made it clear that the trees had to be removed because of this asbestos. And what I'm extremely disappointed about is that the head of DPLH also told members of the community that that second arborist's report had been received by the City of Vincent, when I'd been making it very clear that no such report had been received, and that we were not aware. We had not seen the evidence that these trees needed to be removed because of the asbestos. I note that in answer to a question in Parliament today, when asked directly about the second arborist report, that the response in Parliament was to admit that there was only ever one arborist report, and they avoided answering the direct question as to when the second arborist report was sent to the City of Vincent. Of course they had to do that because there was no second report that was actually produced by an arborist. Instead, they said they received a report in relation to contaminated sites. It's a report that we never saw. I have to say that the decision to completely bypass engaging in community consultation was utterly unnecessary. If it turns out that the trees just had to be removed, then I think that they had an obligation to demonstrate that to both the council and also to the local community. But instead they chose to literally bulldoze this matter through and show complete disrespect and complete disregard for the local community and for the council. And I find that utterly reprehensible. I also find it completely unacceptable that public servants were giving misleading comments, not only to the community, but also in the media. I take great umbrage at that. And I am concerned to make sure that we never see a repeat of the sort of behaviour by a State Department that we saw last week. Not only is it devastating that these large trees have been removed, but the way in which they were removed and the way in which everybody was treated with such contempt is absolutely unacceptable. The CEO has met with DPLH to talk through this. We are determined to make sure that we never see a repeat of this again. And unfortunately for DPLH, I think they will find that rather than being able to just quickly get rid of the trees and hope that it all dies down, in actual fact, they have unleashed a bit of a beast in terms of this matter, because the community are making it very clear that they're not letting this go. I'm really pleased that there's going to be 80 dwellings on that site. I'm even more pleased to hear that that's going to be reserved for older people. I think that's a really suitable development for that site. But as we move forward, as we are looking at the remediation of the land, as we're looking at the built form, as we're looking at the future of the heritage house, which council has agreed should be kept, I hope that we're not ever going to see a sort of repeat of the contempt that we were subject to in the last week. CEO, do you have any declarations of interest you wish to do? Councillor Alexander, that was my opportunity to speak. I'm going to hand over to the CEO.
Through you, Mayor Zaman, the conflicts of interest received include the following. First, from Councillor Warner, financial interest in relation to item 11.5 on underground power. Noting the extent of the interest is that Councillor Warner owns property in the first underground power project area, which is the subject of the report. Councillor Warner declared a financial interest in relation to item 9.1, number 10, Farmer Street, North Perth, alterations and additions, recreation facility, Woodville Reserve. Extent of the interest is that Councillor Warner's son is employed at North Perth Bowling Club. Councillor declared an impartiality interest in relation to the same item 9.1, noting that she is a social member of the North Perth Bowling Club. Councillor Wolf also declared an impartiality interest in relation to item 12.3, the information bulletin, noting that she is a former member of the Stop the Station community group. And Councillor Hallett declared a proximity interest in relation to item 12.2, acquisition right-of-way lot 66 and consideration private use of Brisbane Street parking bays by Brisbane Hotel. The extent of the interest is that Councillor Hallett owns an apartment adjacent to the Brisbane Street car park. And that's all the declarations received this evening.
Are there any further declarations of interest from any councillors? Okay, so we don't have any items the subject of a question, comment or deputation from a member of the public, nor items that require an absolute majority. Yes, I beg your pardon. So of course we do have the questions that have come in. So that was in relation to 11.2, sorry, and 11.5. Okay, so Councillor Warner, do you have any matters? Councillor Wallace. Okay. Councillor LaFontaine. Councillor Castle. Councillor Greer. Councillor Alexander.
Just a couple of comments on the draft stretch reconciliation plan.
Okay, so that's 11.4. Okay, Councillor Wolf.
9.1 and 9.2, please.
Councillor Hallett. Okay. In addition to that, I had 10.1. Okay, so I'm just going to work out the items that are proposed to be passed en bloc.
Confirming the following items will be moved en bloc. 11.1, 11.3, 12.1.
Do we have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Castle. Seconded Councillor LaFontaine. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to move to the first item, which is 11.2, authorisation of expenditure for the period the 1st of August 2024 to 31st of August 2024. Do we have a mover? This is moved Councillor Wallace. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Warner. Now this is the first one up because it was subject to some questions from the public. So perhaps if we can get a response to those, to get those questions up, and then they can be responded to, unless of course Councillor Wallace, you have your own items you wish to put. So Councillor Wallace is wishing to, I'm assuming, to ensure that the questions can be heard and responded to.
Thank you, Mayor.
Through the chair, the payments relate to storage of public art that the city has procured for installation in Leederville. The installation has been delayed while we wait for a Western Power connection, a process which takes 18 months to 2 years. We've been waiting just over 12 months and have not yet received approval for this. The intention is to install the artwork prior to this connection being available. However, we've had some servicing issues and that's been delayed. We intend to install the artwork by the end of the year. We will have to provide in the minutes of the next meeting a response to some of the more specific parts of that question.
Councillor Wallace, do you wish to ask anything or say anything further?
No, thank you, Mayor.
No worries. Councillor Warner, is there anything you wish to say?
Not really. More that this is a situation I hope that can be resolved as soon as possible.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, Councillor Wallace, do you wish to say anything in reply? Okay, I'm going to put the item. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. So the next item is 11.5, Underground Power, North Perth Mount Hawthorn Project and Co-Funding Agreement, noting that both Councillor Warner, just Councillor Warner. So Councillor Warner needs to leave the chamber because she has a conflict of interest. Okay, do we have a mover for this item? This has also been the subject of questions which have been submitted from the public. So do we have a mover for this? Moved Councillor Castle. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Greer. So Councillor Castle, is there anything you wish to add to this, or would you like to have the questions, the response to the questions that have been submitted replied to?
I will speak to it, but also happy to have the questions answered to start with.
Right, through you, Mayor Zaman. So there are a few there, and we'll provide more detailed answers in the minutes. But if I just was to summarise those, the first payment will be made to Western Power in September 2025. It's important to note that the Treasury loans are just for those people who want a 4-year option. So the loans aren't there to fund the actual cash flow of the actual project. If all ratepayers paid up front, we wouldn't need any loans and minimal reserves. So that's an important point to note. The financial model allows for up to 70% of ratepayers to access that option. It's hard to predict exactly how many people will want that option. So we've just allowed capacity in the model to extend that for up to 70%. And we have a maximum borrowing capacity as modeled last year of up to 50%. So I think that probably touches on most of the points. There's a question around borrowing capacity. We've assessed that last year, and we've assessed that across the whole life of the project. It's not a static assessment, so it changes from year to year, and it's based on the current and future financial position of the city. So it's important to look at that entirety. The 50% borrowing capacity also ensures there's equity across all 8 projects, so we wouldn't want to borrow too much early on and then restrict us in the future. So we've tried to balance that across the whole 8 projects.
Thank you. I'm happy to support the officer recommendation. I think it's very exciting to be moving to the next step of this project. It's obviously a very large and very complex project. We've been talking about it at council at the strategic level, at the high level and at the granular level for a number of months and years. So it is great to see this next step where we have some real numbers to take to the community. Surprisingly, in this case, the delay has led to a better outcome for our community in terms of the cost. So we'll always take that as a win and cross our fingers that that continues for the future projects. I'm also very happy with where we've landed on the model for charging the community. We have discussed a number of different options for how to split that cost in the most equitable way, taking into account a number of different factors. And I think this hybrid model is a great place to land in terms of balancing the needs and the costs of the residential charges and the commercial charges. I look forward to seeing how this is received. As I've spoken about with the director a couple of times, we won't really know how the community feels until they get the bill in the mail. But we are going to them with a number of options about how to manage this charge. So I'm hopeful that there is a very positive reception. I know that our community really wants underground power, and so now we're just talking about the details of how we and they are going to pay for that. And I think that our modelling is very robust, so I'm quite confident that we will be able to manage the feedback that we get from our community about how they'd like to manage this charge to their property.
Councillor Greer, is there anything you wish to say? Does any other councillor have any comments in relation to this item? I just want to say how pleased I am that this is getting progressed. I agree with the comments that have been made by Councillor Castle that I'm getting asked about this from people who are really keen to see this occur. As I've said in the past, I think that the sorts of things that one of the big advantages of underground power is the livability that comes with it in terms of tree canopy and also reduced levels of blackouts and those sorts of things. So it's absolutely fantastic. One of the things I am going to be, I think we need to be really careful of is making sure that we've got full information available in terms of what people can expect and while the works themselves are being undertaken. I know that people will be concerned about the impact on existing trees, on verge gardens, on services. So I think that it's going to be important that we really have comprehensively put all the information out there so that people can have some clear understanding about what to expect and also any recourse if they're concerned about something. But I suspect that's something we might be able to canvass in a workshop at some point to even do a bit of a brainstorm about the sorts of concerns that might come from the community. But fantastic that it's fantastic that we're finally getting there. So yeah, very pleased. Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything in conclusion? Okay, so we'll put the proposal. All those in favour? Right, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is 9.1. That's number 10, Farmer Street, North Perth, alterations and additions to Bowls Club. Okay, so do I have a mover for that? So that's moved Councillor Wolf. Is that seconded by Councillor Hallett? Councillor Wolf, you wish to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Just putting aside for a moment the fact that this is a retrospective application, I certainly have no issue with the structure in question here. For purely research purposes, I did go down and have a look over the weekend, and it's certainly not visible to the public in any way, and it serves a very clear purpose. My understanding is that this one has come to council not because it's a retrospective application, but rather because it doesn't fit the criteria within the delegation structures for permanent structures on council-owned land.
Through you, Mayor Zamon. So yes, there's no exemptions for a DA under the planning regulations or under our own planning exemption policy. So that triggers the DA. And then under our delegations, it doesn't meet the criteria for the item to be delegated to administration. So we're required to bring that to council for a decision.
Thank you for explaining that. It was confusing to me a little bit in terms of whether this was a good use of resources and why it had come to council, given that it was so small scale and unobtrusive. So thank you for clarifying. But just to be very clear, I do support the application and certainly wouldn't stand in the way of anything that will help cool the drinks at the Bowls Club.
Councillor Hallett, does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay. So, Councillor Wolf, you're happy for me to put the proposal? All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And Councillor Warner can come back into the room because she. Okay. So now we move on to 9.2, which is the Public Health Plan 2020-2025 Annual Review number 4. Okay, do we have a mover for this? Moved by Councillor Hallett. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Greer. Just wait till Councillor Warner has had the opportunity to rejoin us. Councillor Warner, we're now dealing with item 9.2. Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. I support the motion as is. I've just got 3 things I just wanted to mention in relation to the public health plan and more broadly what the city has been up to. One, I think, is around the diversity of work that's been achieved, and I think it's very clear that both the public health folks within the city but also the broader staff have been heavily engaged in delivering deliverables that are part of the public health plan, but it touches all areas of the organisation, and I think that's been really testament to the ability for the public health staff to really engage and motivate the entire organisation to work in this space. I think it's really exciting to see the diversity of activity from vaccination to economic hardship to business enhancement grants to the more traditional work that local governments are doing around SNAP or smoking, nutrition, alcohol and physical activity. And so I think lovely to see all of that work happening. And I think anyone who looks at this report will be pretty impressed that a city as small as ours is achieving quite this level of activity. The second point I wanted to comment on was around, I guess, the public health leadership of Vincent. And working in public health myself, I'm regularly interacting with folks who comment on what Vincent's doing, and are really pleased to see Vincent really pushing the envelope and showing leadership in WA, and not just in WA. So I just was in Canberra a couple of weeks ago for a National Health Promotion conference, and was approached by a public health, as quite a senior public health person in Victoria, who said that they've been watching what you've been doing around smoke-free town centres and tobacco control, and they're jealous, and they think that we're doing fantastic things. And so I guess that's just a national thank you to the Vincent staff for the work that you're doing. And then the last one, I guess, was just about exciting to see us getting nearer to all of this being achieved and towards the next public health plan, and I guess the opportunities that provides us as a city to aspire even more. And I guess for me, there are some challenges in enacting, I guess, sustainable public health change within local government, and some of that is very much around infrastructure. And I guess what I'm interested in seeing where we go next around how do we embed the public health response within planning, within our accessible city strategy, active transport, etc. Because I think that stuff's really hard. It requires significant engagement by the state government and policy change at a state government level. And so I think it will be good to explore that. So I'm looking forward to the consultation with both us, but also community, about what they see the future for health for our local community. That's it.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Ms Simon, and Councillor Hallett said everything so beautifully there that I don't want to repeat too much, but I just want to say a tremendous thank you for all the team have achieved in this last plan. It's absolutely tremendous. Everything from really hyper-local things to big awards to managing big international events. Like the scope of work is just tremendous. And as Councillor Hallett said, it's crossed over so many aspects of the City of Vincent, but also so many people when public health is going right, people don't realise it's even happening. So I want to just take a moment to say thank you so very much to the team. And similar to Councillor Hallett, I'm very much looking forward to hearing down the track the development of the next plan, and very excited for that to be bold and also find ways to bring the community along with us. Those the very diverse ranges in here. There's so much opportunity to improve the lives of our community with the next plan. So thank you very much for your work on this.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to echo previous comments, really want to acknowledge all of the hard work and the award-winning work that's gone into the current plan. I've had a flurry of contacts and meetings with residents in the last few weeks on issues of public health, so I just wanted to share a little bit of the feedback. Feedback's been that they've really appreciated initiatives, particularly the smoke-free town centres, as well as something that I didn't see in the report, which was the nature play in the park, which has that healthy food education aspect, both for children and for families as well. So really pleased to see that program's continued on as well. But from those meetings, it's very clear that residents are continuing to look to us in that leadership role. And some of the issues have been things like benzene exposure, asbestos safety, and raising awareness of the dangers of those second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides. And they're particularly looking to us on emerging issues where other levels of government haven't yet acted. So yeah, I agree with those previous comments around looking forward to the consultation on the next plan. And I expect that there'll be a lot of interest from the community in this one. Thanks.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? So I've just got a comment. I think it's flowing on from the comments that were made by Councillor Wolf. I'm conscious of the additional work that's occurring in response to very concerns as they're raised within the community that's not being reflected in this report. And I think, for example, of the concerns which have been coming forward around inappropriate disposal of hypodermic syringes, and what hasn't been put in the report is the work that's being done by the council to work with particularly the alcohol and other drug sector, the commitment that's been undertaken to actually try to look at getting peer-based responses to best ways to actually encourage people who are using illicit drugs to appropriately dispose of their needles. That's the sort of proactive engagement that is often hidden, that people don't realise is being undertaken, as well as the diligence of our parks team in terms of trying to make sure that where syringes and the like are found, that they're being picked up and disposed of appropriately, and making sure that those the facilities are made available as well. I'm just using that as an example, but I'm just conscious that when you start listing all the things that you have achieved, you do run the risk of making it look as though that's extensive, and it's not. And it's not. There is so much more work that's occurring, and like Councillor Wolf, I'm really keen to see what happens with the next community consultation around the public health plan, and I hope we continue to be nationwide leaders in this space. So, Councillor Alexander.
Has to be nice to David McLennan for once. I see, for example, at 5:30 in the morning, someone over there with a little bobcat in Hyde Park, shifting through the children's playground with, well, obviously a sifter behind the bulldozer or the bobcat, getting rubbish and needles and all sorts of things out of sandy playgrounds. So they're the sorts of things I guess we generally don't see, which are happening. So just, well done on the unseen things.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Hallett, is there anything you wish to say? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? That's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I move on to 10.1, Loftus Recreation Centre, review of annual lease payments. Do we have a mover for this? I just had some questions. So can someone move it? Moved by Councillor Castle. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Alexander. Councillor Castle, did you wish to say anything? Councillor Alexander, did you wish to say anything?
Oh, just that we went and had a look at what their complaint was, which was largely that Beatty Park's been built and there's extra competition now in the gym space. Oh, yeah. Hi there, welcome. And so you could see they had a reason for wanting a reduction. So the reason seemed fair enough.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? I suppose I just want to make some comments. It is a very large amount of money that's being asked by the council to in terms of a rate cut. We're aware that earlier on in the year we had the closure of the creche, which caused quite a bit of concern from the regular users of the facilities. In more recent times, though, I have to say I applaud their willingness to enable the Fasio's PD facility to be there as well as a first in Vincent. I'm pretty happy about that. But I suppose I would like a little bit more information around the rationale to actually grant this discount, noting that they have moved into other premises as well in East Fremantle, and I understand it's a newer facility. So I was just wanting to get some feedback around this. And is this likely to be an ongoing problem in terms of any future tendering for that space?
Through you, Mayor Zamon. We've worked with Belgravia for a number of years. We've seen a steady decline in the income generation at that facility. And as Councillor Alexandra alluded to, it's probably mainly due to the success of Beatty Park being a more all-round facility. Loftus certainly being an ageing facility as we move forward, and something we have to consider as we get towards the end of their lease period in 2027. And we will be looking at all our options as we go forward there. They did originally propose a full rent abatement, I suppose. We didn't like that idea. We have proposed to council a 50% reduction for this year, with a review 3 months before the end of the year to see how it's tracking some of the changes that they've put to us, and we've suggested to them around the Pilates classes, changes to the group fitness program, some staffing changes that they have made themselves leading up to this point, and just some sort of zhuzhing up of the facility as well in terms of maintenance, just carpet, cleaning, presentation, all those sort of things that you try to do to make the centre more appealing as it gets older. So we're certainly working with them to try and make it more viable to them, so that they stick around and make it a working relationship that we can certainly take into the longer term if we can. But we will look at other options as we move forward. So that's where we sort of stand at the moment.
So do we get do we have an indication of usage in terms of generally whether most of the people using it are local residents or whether they're coming from outside of Vincent?
Different programs we do, so we can get some information around that. I can present that at a workshop report or to council at a future date. A lot of the groups are in Vincent, especially the basketball. When we have the bigger competitions like the gymnastics area, that's separate to them, so that's not actually Belgravia's part of the building. But the basketball, netball, volleyball, badminton, all those are mainly local residents, and we do encourage that. The floorball, the wheelchair sports that they have there, they come from far and wide. So, but that's because it's the only place that does run those wheelchair soccer groups. So that's quite pleasing for Vincent to have that within Vincent. So that's something that Belgravia brought to us. And then just the gymnasium, that's a local sort of one as well. So most of that, bit like Beatty Park, you get about 60 to 70% is local. Being on a main drag, you do get some people that drop in on the way home, way back from work to work in the city. But it's certainly hidden over a hill, doesn't help it. So as we look towards the future, those sorts of things have to be considered. Visibility from the main street is a really big one for Beatty Park. You can see that as you drive past. It's lit up at night. Bravia or Loftus Rec Centre is hidden over the back of a hill behind sometimes some bins and bits and pieces. Things like the AFLW on the weekend were a great advertisement for the facility. We had a lot of people walking around that facility. They got to see it. They got to sit up against it. What's this behind us? We need to take those opportunities to sell that facility as we move forward. So we'll work with Belgravia on that. And as that ground gets redeveloped over there, we'll see more people into this precinct, which may provide opportunities for Belgravia and the City of Vincent to promote that facility for what it is, whether it stays how it is or whether we change it to something different in the future as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Does any other, Councillor Warner?
Thank you. Just following on from what you said, I went on the tour and had a look, and I really think there are some unique, special things about Belgravia and the Loftus Centre, and I would really like to see us pursue those to spread the word. To have a 24-hour facility, I think, is a great thing. I don't know if people are aware of that, so let's promote what we've got. You know, when the AFLW is there, that's great. That's showing it off. As the Sullivan Stadium is developed, that's more opportunities. But also, let's really promote what we've got as well. So, I think all of that can be working together to achieve something.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything? Okay, so I'll put you moved it, didn't you? I'm just trying to remember. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so all those in favour? Okay, passed unanimously. Thank you. So then I'll move on to 11.4, the draft stretch reconciliation plan 2025 to 2027. Do I have a mover for this proposal? Moved Councillor Alexander. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wolf. Councillor Alexander.
There's 106 different suggestions of things that we can do. 59 of those were from Reconciliation Australia. There was 47 that Vincent have come up with separately. And I just think, we've got to consider what we're trying to do. I think you can try too hard sometimes, and I think this is a bit of the case with this. For example, update email signatures, to include acknowledgement of country translated into the Noongar language. Now, I just don't think, every single email going out from the City of Vincent needs the acknowledgement to country in the Noongar language on it. So, and then there's a range of things, where, for example, include acknowledgement to country or incorporated into the waste and recycling online booking system. There's a range of things there which, I just simply are not actually doing anything which is helping the situation. So I just encourage councillors to have a read of, not just go to the first page or two, but go to the 106 recommendations. And I think some of them just try hard, which is commendable, but I don't think are particularly helpful.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief comment to acknowledge that there's a lot of work that goes into preparing a draft RAP like this, a lot of consultation, research and consideration. So thank you for that. As well, given the context that we're in terms of the outcome of the Voice referendum, our commitment to reconciliation and the journey of maturity of Vincent as an organisation is particularly important. So yeah, I'm pleased to support this going out for consultation.
Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? I wish to commend the administration for pulling together this item. I'm glad that we're looking to extend beyond what is deemed to be the minimum. I think that's consistent with the way that we have sought to move towards playing our part with reconciliation and justice with First Nations people. I think it'll be interesting to see how our relationship with the Whadjuk Aboriginal Corporation evolves. They, as a result of the Southwest Noongar settlement, and they are now considered to be they're called the fourth tier of government, the official cultural knowledge holders of the First Nations people, the Whadjuk Noongar people. We have had one meeting as a whole with them, and we're seeking to come to see if as a local council we can come to a formalised arrangement with them. It would be great to be able to be one of the first councils, if not the first council, to be able to enter into this arrangement. So this is a constantly evolving and maturing space, and we do have a lot of work to do, but hopefully we can at least play our part as the City of Vincent. So does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Alexander, do you have anything to say in conclusion?
No, nothing. Nothing further.
Okay, I'll put the proposal. All those in favour? Against? Okay, noting that Councillor Alexander voted against. Okay, but carried. Right, so. Okay, so I note that we moved to 12.2, acquisition of right-of-way lot 66 in consideration private use of Brisbane Street parking bays by Brisbane Hotel, noting that Councillor Hallett has a proximity interest and so he has left the chambers. Do we have a mover for this proposal? Moved Councillor Wolf. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor LaFontaine. Councillor Wolf, do you wish to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Private acquisition of public land certainly isn't a decision to take lightly. Ultimately, I am supportive of the proposal for the reasons described in the report, increasing patronage, as well as increasing the car park occupancy and revenue for the city, as well as the advice in the report that the acquisition won't impact on adjoining properties or result in any loss of vehicle access for those adjoining properties. I mentioned at the briefing that I had issue with how the proposal was framed in the original plans in terms of having a community use for the community courtyard. But thanks administration for amending the language in the report around that. But yeah, ultimately I'm supportive, particularly in terms of how the proceeds will be used in terms of public open space in Highgate. I think that was a really nice touch.
Councillor LaFontaine, is there anything you wish to say? Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Castle.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about the consultation that may happen as part of this process. I'm not sure I fully understand how that will work. The first item of the recommendation refers to the Minister for Lands considering and responding to any submissions or objections received. My first question is that something that the city is involved in managing or responding to, or is that completely delegated to the Minister?
Through the Chair, to clarify, it's that we request the Minister for Lands to pursue the acquisition subject to the CEO considering and responding to any submissions or objections. So we will undertake public notice period, and then we would respond to any submissions and then provide our response to that to the Minister to consider.
Okay, great. So that's our consultation. Yep, brilliant. And in relation to the right of way, in relation to the sale of the car bays, will there be what consultation will happen on that particular point?
Through the Chair. So should we get to that point, then we would go for public notice where we would set out the intended amount for the sale of the land, the intended purchaser of the land, and then call for public submissions on that process. And then if those submissions are received, then the CEO would have delegation to consider those submissions and determine whether to proceed with the sale.
So that process that calls for submissions, does that allow, we're only proposing to consider a private treaty sale rather than an open tender. So there's no delegation in this recommendation to accept a bid from another party, only from the named party. Is that correct?
Through the Chair, that's correct. We're proposing that the city enters into a sale with this private proponent.
Okay, thank you. I agree it's not something you take lightly, and I've sort of gone back and forth on this because I think we need to be clear what the benefit to the city and to the ratepayers is in considering a proposal like this. There is no community benefit to letting go of control of this land. It may have a benefit for the business, but it's not a community courtyard. It's not. It will become part of a private business. Having said that, we know we have a lack of public open space in the city and we have very limited opportunities to dispose of land that we own. So I think it is important that we consider options like this. Ultimately, I am swayed by the fact that this portion already presents as part of the hotel and probably won't result in any noticeable difference to the community. But I suppose that's a reason for my questions about consultation, because that will be teased out as part of this process. If there is people or businesses out there who may feel aggrieved by it, we'll find out. So I'm happy to proceed to the next stage and to explore this option.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Xamon. Thank you, Councillor Castle, for your questions. I have also gone a bit backwards and forwards on this one with the sale of the public land. I do think it would have been great to have a way to have some community consultation on the idea of it before making this decision, if that was possible. I would have also really liked to have had a bit more understanding about what our hopes are for the future of the car park included in it and what the impact of the removal of the 7 car bays would have been. So perhaps a question there of just how do we see the sale of the car parks impacting the future use of the car park, perhaps alternative uses to being a car park in the future?
To you, Mayor Zaman. Sorry. We have, with the previous council before October last year, flagged that we are looking at a potential redesign of the car park to accommodate high density mixed use within that very developable area. And there's also, we're in discussions with Highgate Primary for staff car parking to be able to be used in that car park on a temporary basis. But we'll come back to council. We've engaged a member of our design review panel to mock up some concepts of what a redevelopment of that car park could look like, but that wouldn't impact the hotel being in the corner site and these car bays. There's that would all be accommodated within what the concept that the architect's looking at.
Excellent, thank you. I just think it would have been excellent to kind of have that full package before deciding to divvy off the 7. Saying that though, in the backwards and forwards, it is that conversation. There isn't much opportunity to invest in our public open space, having rented all around that area. Unless you've got Birdwood Square, you've got Hyde Park, there's not really a lot of incidental comfortable to sit in public open space. And in the recommendation, I would like to see in the future, when it's allocating where that money goes, of a real consideration of the opportunity to find some new public open space, not just further investing in Birdwood Square, which meets a certain need of some of our community, but not perhaps just quiet enjoyment somewhere close to home. So yeah.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? So I have a few comments. I also echo the concerns that have been made already about relinquishing council land for private entity. But if we are going to look at reimbursing this, putting the money back into more public open space, I would like to see if there's opportunities to look at the creation of pocket parks where they don't currently exist. And the other thing I really want to put on the radar is that Gladstone Park is a blight and a disgrace and needs some money put into it. So please don't ever forget about poor little Gladstone Park. It really does need some love in a pretty major way. In fact, I suspect if any of our residents who live in Mount Hawthorn or around Hyde Park were to go down there and see the state of it, they would be quite shocked. Anyone else wish to speak to this item? Councillor Wolf, do you wish to say anything? Okay, so I'll put the proposal. All those in favour? Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. So Councillor Hallett, can you please bring him back into the room? So then we go on to 12.3, which is the information bulletin. Okay, we've been rejoined by Councillor Hallett. Do we have a mover for this item? Moved Councillor Wolf, seconded. Seconded Councillor Warner. Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to administration for the updates both last week and in the papers regarding the Angove Street petrol station SAT appeals. On the refurb application, I am deeply frustrated that now 8 weeks after council urged the landowners to secure the site, there's been absolutely no action. And I'm really saddened to report that now we've had local families leaving City of Vincent because of the impact of the antisocial behaviour on their families and on their lives. So to the landowners, appealing that broader council decision to me does not absolve them in any way of their corporate responsibility to the community and to the community's safety. I said this when the refurb application came to council. The people of Vincent should not have to choose between a disastrous planning decision or living with such severe antisocial behaviour that they're now forced to sell their homes. So I wanted to acknowledge administration and the email that we received today about the ongoing efforts that have been taken to ensure that this is addressed. I would encourage the landowners to respond to the correspondence, but also to secure the site. It's very simple, and take up some of the additional suggestions that have been made in terms of ways that we can increase safety at the site, such as CCTV. And I really hope that they act responsibly and do so urgently. Thanks.
And does any councillor Warner doesn't wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? I had a question about a different item, if that's okay, and that's about the number of development applications. I'm interested to know what sort of percentage generally there is take up of the green track process.
Yeah, sure. So it's been pretty positive. We actually ran some stats in preparation for a report for next month, actually. So we've got them handy. Since Green Track was launched in February this year, there's been about a 22% uptake in the priority assessment stream, and that's relevant to the single house and group dwelling proposals, including alterations and additions. So that has increased over the last few months. In September, we received 5, which was the biggest so far. So a slow increase as our comms are continuing.
That's great. Thank you. I hope more and more people choose to take advantage of the green track process, and I hope we can find ways to enhance that even further. Are there any other questions in relation to any of the items on this at 12.3? Okay, so Councillor Wolf, do you wish to say anything? Okay, I'll put it the proposal. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so don't have any motions of previous notice or questions or urgent business. We don't have any confidential items. So there being no further business to conduct, I thank all those in attendance and on the live stream, and I close the meeting at 7:01. You can turn off the live stream. Thank you.